I've begun mocking up the sway bar location in the front, but in order to do that I had to mock up a bunch of other stuff. I had to turn the tires to what's probably going to be maximum steering angle, and we just got to kind of lay some things out and get a visual check of where everything is before moving forward. So let's take a look. Here's where I'm looking at for maximum clearance before we start hitting. On the upper arms, passenger side turns a little bit further before it hits than the driver's side, which, and what I know is different is this offset spacer is a little different, so that upper arm is tilted some more. So that's probably what's making it hit a little earlier. Got the sway bar mocked up. There's an actual bar inside of there. There's the outside tube, there's the bearings, and then the arms on here. These arms will need to get a bend in them to get them out further, because the further out they are, the more leverage effect there is on the bar, which effectively makes the bar both softer, because it'll twist easier, but also you're getting more travel out there, so you're getting a more effective application of the spline bar. But before we get too far, we got to check on the coilover as well. So I've got the bolt stuck in the bottom, the coilover mount. It could go here. It could tilt it up some more yet. However, I was kind of thinking maybe I'd incorporate this front plate into the mount. I'll have to put a steel mount up here too, and that'll probably come up, hit a roll cage tube either here over the frame or kind of sorta towards the frame, or we'll have one up on the fender as like an exo kind of a deal. I mean, not exoskeleton outside the car, but up there where it's holding the fender. But somewhere in here the coilover is going to mount. I don't want to come way down, because now the more angle we get in here, the less effective it is. So I think maybe you're right about here for a hole. It's going to be a good compromise where I can incorporate the plate and the mount, so that we end up making this front plate into a structural member of the front end, and that eliminates me needing to build a crossbar between the two coilover mounts later on. The steering is what's going to be the other thing that affects it in here, because this is going to end up being somewhere in there. I already had to space this up some more. I'd originally just set it on the blocks to kind of get an idea. I had to space it up so that I could get enough clearance, because otherwise this was hitting. And we'd be able to pull this up and everything to clear the steering. However, with that arm up here, it fits nice, it clears all the suspension parts. However, it really kind of kiboshes my plan, which was to sneakily incorporate a brake duct into the inside of this tube, because it'd be super cool to just pop right out of here with a hose and have our brake duct cooling. And if the bar is here, the swing basically makes that impossible. I've already run into how tight that setup is on the other car when I had to flip the arm from where I mounted the sway bar to this direction where it comes up. I had to do that for clearance reasons on the steering, because previously I had it going underneath. However, with the way this car is working out, I'm pretty sure I'm going to flip the sway bar around, and then I can run it underneath, because it can kind of hang as low as it wants to right here, and it's never going to hit anything, because it's so close to wheel center line, it will always be off of the ground by the same distance. Now with the arms flipped, it's about where the steering is going to end up. It can come down and it can go up on the outside, but we got plenty of room for adjustment both ways, because as the suspension travels, they're both going to move together, and worst case scenario, we can get a steering arm that's got a little bit of bend in it, like 10 or 20 degrees or something on one end, so it'll actually kick it up. I'm currently running steering arms like that on the other car because of issues I ran into with where my sway bar was set up. And this frees up all of this space for a brake duct. Now the sway bar kit comes with these half tubes, like it's what's holding up the steering right now, that I can cut to length and then come straight off the bottom of the frame here. And then we've got these tubes that I can then make a gusset out of. However, I'm leaning towards doing a slightly different style where I can basically plate down the side of the frame and then it'll drop down and wrap all the way around. And then I can make four plates for one on the inside and outside of both frame rails. It'll help hold everything. It'll be real easy to position, and it'll get me some more weld across the top to help bring the front of these up, because I'm still low by 7/16 of an inch at the front of the frame rails compared to behind the front suspension, just because there was so much extra welding to the bottom side. And by getting some extra weld along the top here, that should help pull these up. However, I'm kind of at the point where I'm willing to just not care about that little bit of downward angle in the front of the chassis, because basically we're going to end up with a cage tube landing out here somewhere. Don't know where yet. If I go to that design like I'm talking about, it'd be an excellent place to plate the top for even more thickness and then weld it right to the top above here. And then everything forward can kind of be considered a crumple zone in the event of a crash, because everything from here back will be super tied in and structurally strong, and it'll be on purpose weaker to the front of the car. Which, in the event that I have another crash, because it's a matter of which, in the event of another crash, I've already had one. Luckily, it was only cosmetic damage to the front end of the car and didn't damage anything critical. However, I could not be that lucky next time and could have a way harder hit. So, by building everything critical strong to the center of the car and keeping both ends of the car on purpose weaker and having that crumple zone, I can pretty much guarantee that I should be able to hit something, expend a lot of that energy, and at worst I've only destroyed the ends of the car, and everything in the middle should be nice and safe. Alright, I have no idea if this is even gonna bend this, but I'm gonna give it a try. Worst case scenario, I gotta heat up with the torch to get it softened up to make the bend I want. And we're just gonna see how it goes. Actually, I should pull this other piece out of here, because this thing's gonna need to be a pretty big radius. Oh. So I make sure we're squared up. That way it's repeatable from side to side. And then I've got it marked where I want the bend to be. It'll clear the tire. So let's see whether or not this will even make a dent. Alright, I gotta say, I'm pretty impressed. I didn't think it was gonna do it. I better check where I'm at. Don't want to bend it too far. Checker angle, 22.2. We'll see how that lines up on the car. That went way easier than I thought it was gonna. So here's where we ended up. Pushed up tight. It's not bad. Mostly we want to look at where the, we're gonna have tire clearance, and that's gonna be able to, this is like maxed out hitting the control arm. We're not even gonna come close to the sway bar at that point. And we're out there in a good spot where we can probably put a linkage arm on. Actually, I got that right here. So, probably gonna wanna do something like that. It's actually pretty good. I don't know if I want to go over much farther. It's probably actually really good. I'm glad I stopped. So now I'll have to get the other side to match up. That bent way easier than I thought it was going to. Hey, I made a left and a right this time. There we go. So now we'll just have to come down here, make sure that I'm at the same distance, although I did bump off the backs when I made the bends. And they were very close to start with, so at most we're off by a very small amount. I'm just going to drill and tap the ends here so that we can put a 1/2 inch bolt in. That's all it really needs, because that's what I've been running on the other car for several years now. I have some of these spacers just to give us a little more articulation angle out of the end links. If we get it set up right, we shouldn't actually need it, but it's still nice to have. And once I've got that sorted out, then we'll worry about making the mounts on the lower control arm. So as you saw there, I had to tap this bracket down a little bit in order to get everything to sit nice on the arm. That was why I purposely only tacked in the 2 top places on the first bracket, because I didn't know what angle it was going to want to sit at. Largely because I don't have any way to, perfectly match the second bracket. So it was a matter of putting a bolt in, tightening everything up, it aligns the 2 holes, and then I can just angle the 2 brackets ever so slightly so that they sit on the tubes nice. What I did do was I matched up the brackets to the front tube as much as I could. We're stuff that's cut out by hand. I mean, none of this is perfect, and nothing that says my tubes are perfect either, but they're performing the job that they need to do. So it was just a matter of make sure that hole is nice and lined up. I had to cut a bolt down shorter in order to make sure that I'll be able to remove it. And now I got it to where I can tack and weld both brackets in. I'll do the same thing on the other side. Okay, so this is the part where we don't have a perfect match, because this bolt just barely won't come out of there, and I mean, it rubbed a little bit on the other side, but it came out. Not a big deal. I mean, it's probably just a slight difference in one of the tube heights compared to the other one, which just, you know, it's normal variation with our fit up because of we don't have a super thought out, well designed jig setup because we're not making 100 of these, we're making 2. This will easily be fixable after I get it off the car. I don't think I'll include it in the video because I have no reason to pull these off of the car immediately other than welding this up, but everything will have to come back off when things get painted or whatever I end up doing there. And this will be as easy as I can just clip these 2 tacks. I can give this one a little more bend up, and we'll just have some gap to fill on each side, and this bolt will go in and out of there just no problem. So, nothing to worry about. Just, I knew it was going to be kind of tight because where the height ended up on here, but that's just where my end links ended up. I didn't want to add where it ended up being really high or have to run this torsion bar arm super low either. So this is just where we're at with it. And in the grand scheme, not even remotely close to an issue. The big thing is that we know we're at the same width on the arm. That way we have the same torque coming from each wheel, and we're not having some kind of offset where on the left side of the car it's twisting more than the right side of the car or vice versa. And then really the height of that location doesn't matter either. I mean, hell, we could put a longer arm on one side as far as the link versus the other, and it really won't change anything that I know of. And I'll end the video here because we've got our torsion bar, sway bar put in, we got our arms bent, we got mounts. We'll just, the only thing left is final welding on them, and that'll be done on the bench later when I have a reason to be disassembling a big portion of this car, which most likely will be when we reach the point where I'm going to want to probably take it to someone to get it blasted and painted or powder coated or whatever that ends up being at the point in time. I really don't know yet. You know, I mean, I may even just end up having to sand on this thing for a few days and primer it and paint it myself in here. And it's, I don't know, I'm just looking at it as a big job. I prefer it being blasted when it gets to that point, but we'll worry about that later.